today we have the privilege of having a special guest here with us that's going to share her experience of how it is living abroad. And I'm so happy to introduce this young lady. She's very dear to me. One of my younger cousins, Alimatu. Welcome to Paytime, Alimatu.
Thank you. Paytime like that.
Yeah. So I thought it was incredible as a young lady being raised from a different culture to actually go live to leave the States and go live abroad and everything. Tell us a little bit about your background and what made you to make that decision.
Okay, you know my background.
Yeah, I do.
Tell the people. Both of my parents were born in West Africa. My dad from Sierra Leone, my mom from Liberia, but they both traveled to the U.S. to go to school, and that's where they had me and my siblings. So I'm first generation American, and while, like, as a child, we also lived in Africa, but we lived in East Africa. So we lived in Kenya for 4 years, and that actually had like a profound impact on me when it came to travel and just like experiencing different cultures and stuff like that. There's a term for it. It's called third culture kid.
Third culture kid.
Third culture
oh
kid.
wow, never
Yeah.
heard that terminology before.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's like a whole psychology behind it. It basically means somebody who grew up in a culture that's not theirs or their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents, come from a different culture. I was raised in America, and we lived in a third culture. So that's kind of where that term comes from.
Yeah.
So.
Something else, like tell us about your grandparents, your grandfather. Because like you said, your father is from another country, your mom is from another country. So how did those two countries like intertwine?
Okay, well, so Sierra Leone and Liberia border each other. So my dad's dad, who I'm assuming you're talking about my dad.
Yeah.
My dad's dad, he was kind of a nomad salesman. He's from the Hausa tribe in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
And he, even though like he had his kids in Sierra Leone, he traveled a lot. He was in and out of Liberia, and he actually knew your mom before, because you're my mom's side family, before my parents ever met. So when eventually my parents met, your mom introduced my mom to my dad, and my granddad, my dad's dad knew about that. He was like really excited. He was like, "Oh, like mom, you married a good woman. Like I know her family. Da 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 da." Yeah. So.
What I think is like interesting about this experience, I know I used to hear my mom talk about it a lot too, is that her grandfather actually like moving to Liberia. Her grandfather, let's say Nigeria, Sierra Leonean, Guinean,
Yeah.
from your grandma,
Yeah.
and Liberia. But the interesting thing about it is when her grandfather migrated to Liberia, usually when people migrate from other countries, they'll go like to the big city or like the capital. But the part that he went, it was just another county, Sino, Greenville in Liberia. So it wasn't just moving to Monrovia. So
Right, exactly.
I see that, and that's well, traveling or living abroad, like all of that is in her blood.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like fit that she's able to that she was able to migrate and live abroad. But tell us, what country are you living, or what country, and why did you pick that country?
Okay. I'm living in Portugal now.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. I picked Portugal mostly because, okay, so my initial choice was England.
Mm-hmm.
I spent years wanting to live in London, but I spent 2 weeks there by myself, and I was like, no.
Really?
Yeah, because I studied abroad there, and that vibe that I got when I studied abroad was not there when I went by myself. So that was out. And then I was like, I don't know what to do. But anyway, I don't remember exactly how I pinpointed Portugal, but I had visited a couple years before the pandemic, so I knew I really liked it. But then I found out about this digital nomad visa that they had, and I just decided to apply, and it worked out somehow.
How was that process, the visa process?
It was easier than one would think. I mean, getting a visa isn't the easiest thing anywhere, but compared to like, somebody migrating to the US, it was very it was very, very easy.
Okay.
So they have like a checklist of all the things that they require, like bank statements, income receipts, just showing that you can sustain yourself while living there. And once you like have all that proof, you go do the interview, you show them all the documents that you gathered, And then if all goes well, then they send your passport to the Portuguese consulate. I did my interview in DC, which was nice because I think the two major locations for that are in San Francisco and DC. I just happened to live close to one of them. Yeah, there might be more, but that's as far as I'm aware. And yeah, like I did my interview, it went well. There's more to the story, but that's just like the nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to send my passport, and then I got the approval a couple months later.
How long are the visas for? Like how many years?
Okay, so the visa, so it's like two different things. So you get the visa, which is for 4 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get the residency permit. So after you get your visa, you get an interview scheduled for you, or you have to schedule an interview with the Portuguese immigration once you arrive,
Mm-hmm.
and you do that within 4 months. And then the residency card after that interview is 2 years, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting mine renewed right now because I've already been there for 2.5 years,
Mm-hmm.
and the next one will be for 3 years.
Oh wow, good.
Yeah.
So does the time spent change as the years go? The more year you spend there, or
I don't know why it's like that, but I think it's because like after 5 years you can apply for permanent residency or citizenship.
mm-hmm.
So I think that's why they do it that way, but I'm really not sure.
Okay. So I noticed you talked about one of the things that you had to do is prove that you're able to support yourself
Yes.
while there.
Yes.
So what do you do as far as like employment, or how does that process work there?
Yeah, so it was cool because like my residency allows me to work, allows me to freelance, allows me to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever I want in terms of like making money in terms of work,
Mm-hmm.
as long as I'm paying taxes.
So you have to pay their taxes over there.
I'm paying, Portuguese taxes.
Okay.
I think different visas have different things, but mine in particular, which is just like the residency visa, I pay taxes there.
Okay.
And so right now I do software development.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first moved there, I quit my original job and I had another job lined up. So I used like my income from my previous job.
Mm-hmm.
But then once I got my residency card, that job couldn't hire me anymore. So I kind of just spent the summer unemployed. But I was able, but because of my type of status, I was able to find work, like also within the country.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm working now. I'm still doing software development. I got a job there. I've been there for 1.5 years now.
Okay.
And yeah, it's
So with software development, but you got your degree in here in the U.S. or it's just
yeah, it's like I got my degree in graphic design, and actually my graphic design degree helped me get my first software development job because I took like a coding boot camp,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to make my portfolio look really nice and stand out because I had that design background.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, from that I worked at a couple of companies. I think I worked at 3 different companies before I finally, like after my coding boot camp, before I finally moved abroad, and now I'm at my current job.
Okay. What university in the U.S. did you go to, as far as like your degree?
I went to Drexel University in Philadelphia. I chose that school because it had like a really good graphic design program.
Mm-hmm.
And also while there, I was able to study abroad, and that was like when I mentioned studying abroad.
Yeah.
When I went to London, and yeah, that was also the other thing that I was like, I need to get out of America. Yeah.
So it really worked out. It's been working out for you greatly on that. That's really good. That's really good. So that's a career. Like the graphic design is something that you pretty much can do anywhere, or are you able to? It's easy to find jobs to do there.
I would say easy to find jobs because you need a portfolio, you need connections also. I mean, technically, like graphic design is you can apply that work to anywhere. It could be an in-house designer at like whatever company, but it is very accessible. So you actually don't need to go to school for that. You just need to show that you can do the thing. Even with software development, you just need to show the skills. But I will say in Europe, I think degrees are more are taken more seriously there. Like they're more what's the word? Like they're more respected there. Like most people my age, I'm 32, over there and younger already have like masters, for example. So that actually like makes a huge difference when you're job hunting. Whereas here it's like not as important.
Yeah, you can pretty much do stuff that's more opportunity.
Yeah, it's more practical stuff. So if you need like proof that you have the skills, rather than like proof of like knowing theory of certain things, which is like theory is good too, but
So Hallie, tell me. So you moved from pretty much Montgomery County,
Yes.
and you didn't know anybody there. No auntie, no uncle, nobody.
Actually,
And you did know somebody there?
Yeah.
Okay, so good. So how did that help you, or?
Yeah.
Like the time.
So that's the crazy thing. So I didn't. Okay, so my dad has a close family friend whose wife is Portuguese.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All
So she moved. Actually, she spent most of her life outside of Portugal, though. She turned 25 and she left, and she basically didn't come back until the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah. So she had a job based in Ireland. It's remote, so she decided like, okay, I'm just gonna live in Portugal during this time, and yada yada yada. So when I found out she was there, we connected, and I ended up staying with her my first month in Lisbon, which was great. And I was thinking, I was like, oh, this is even better. Like, I'm actually gonna have somebody that I know that I can go to spend time with, you know, when I'm bored or like, you know, I'm missing family and stuff like that. She tells me she got a job in Freetown, Sierra Leone.
Oh gosh.
And then they were leaving at the end of the month, so they actually moved out before I left their apartment.
Wow.
So, it was nice for them because I was able to help them, you know, with things like while they were already gone, like put stuff in storage and, you know, stuff like that. So then I really didn't know anybody. So at first it was like, oh great, like I know somebody, awesome. And then it was like, okay, yeah, now I'm completely by myself. But luckily by then I had found my place. I just had to like wait a few days before I could move in. So that overlapped with me staying in their apartment before, like, you know, all the utilities were shut down. And then I moved into my own place, and then that's when I was like, I really don't know anybody.
So like during doing that, so what is like the cost of living? Like how's that? Like how's that? Is it?
So when I first was looking at apartments, like before I was actually physically there, I was so excited because I was like, apartments here are so cheap. The salary I'm gonna be making is gonna be amazing. Like I'm gonna be good. And then, like I said, I quit my initial job and I had like another job lined up. And so after that, I mean, I was still like going within my means, so that was still easy to find, even with the salary that I thought I was gonna have when I first got there. But that being said, for Portugal, it's quite high, especially in the city. Even now, like I'm making like a more like a local salary. It's okay, like it's fine. And I feel like the prices are decent in my opinion, but like as a local, I can see why it's not for sure. Because minimum wage there is quite low. It's like $900 a month.
Like 900 US a month.
Yeah, and like the average one bedroom I think is like 1,200. So a lot of people are living with their parents. A lot. It's like New York. Like if we were to compare it to anywhere in the U.S., it'd be like New York prices. It's not as expensive as New York. Yeah. But in the context, it's very, very expensive.
I watch a lot of House Hunters, so that's always interesting. Portugal is like one of those places that's always like featured.
Oh really?
Yeah. When they do like Europe, it's always like featured on there.
Yeah.
What about language? Like how?
Let's get into
So how did you what do you do? Like, do you know how to speak it? Are you learning, or how's it communicating with the people there?
I've been learning on the streets. No, okay, so when I first visited Portugal in 2018, I started learning Portuguese just out of curiosity. It was just fun. So I did have like some background on it already. I'm still not fluent, but I can have a conversation. I work with a lot of Portuguese. They help me a lot. Sometimes they would just start speaking Portuguese to me. And I'm either like, oh, or I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. I practice a lot when I'm in an Uber or at the nail salon.
Oh, so they have Uber.
Oh yeah, they have Uber. Yeah, they have Uber. They have Uber. They have they don't have Lyft, but they have another thing called Bolt, which I think is more in Europe. And sometimes the drivers don't speak English. And if they're chatty, then I practice. At the nail salon, if they don't speak English, if they're chatty, I talk to them. So I've had a lot of opportunities to practice. I do want to go back to taking classes though. So in January, I'm gonna start looking into classes again because I think I need to start taking it seriously.
Traveling there back and forth, like if you have to come home to visit your parents and all that other stuff, like ticket pricing, like on the
Mm.
average? Like, is there like a special season? Is better to travel? How does that work?
Yeah, so for me, I've traveled in. So this is my first time coming home in the fall,
Okay.
and the ticket prices were expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I think this time I paid 700.
700
The
for
first
round trip.
for round trip, yeah,
Oh,
for a month.
yeah. Of just also it's done like about like a month. I'm thinking like round trip for a month. You compare it to like traveling like to Liberia or like somewhere else. Is that like?
Yeah. I mean, also the Portugal is like positioned. It's right across the Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
So getting there from here, from DC, from New York, from wherever else on the East Coast is like super quick. It's like 7 to 8 hours. Less than 8
that's
hours.
really good.
Yeah,
That's
because it's
really
literally like, and the city is like close to the coast, kind of. It's not on the coast, but it's like, yeah, it's there. It's so accessible.
That's nice.
And I think that's why the
Yeah. Compared to like 24 or like, you know, all that time.
And
so.
you don't need to lay over. You can if you want to, but like I usually go for direct. And I brought my cat with me here, so that was easier too. So
she has a cat.
Yeah, I have a cat. Yeah, she's really cute. So yeah, that was way easier not to have a layover. Yeah, when I've also come in the summer. I spent like the week here in June because my sister was graduating and I wanted to be here for that. And I don't even think that one was expensive either. Going there in the summer is really expensive. That's when it's popping. Okay. That's when you want to be there.
Yeah, okay. So that's like the social time. How's the social life there? Like, what do you guys do for fun or the food and all of that?
Oh yeah, I have lots to say about the food. So
Okay.
I'll do that. Not bad things, but also not good things. Anyway, okay. Social life. It's very different there. I feel like. So here I live in the suburbs, like my family lives in the suburbs, so like whenever I want to do something I have to like drive there, and I don't like driving, and it's just like, why am I doing this? Like, you know. But when I do go out, it's fun, like, you know, depending on the situation, it's usually fun. But I don't do this often here, so that's like the main difference. But there, I'm way more social, and because I can afford to like live in like, because Lisbon's considered a major city. It's expensive, but it's like a lot cheaper than DC.
It's like most major cities,
right? Yeah. And so I'm in the center. So if I want to go somewhere, hit somebody up, and like we just meet each other. It's like it doesn't have to be this whole big thing. We usually go if like the weather's nice. We could go to like a kiosk, which is just like an outdoor cafe. During the day, they sell.
Do they have good coffee?
They have amazing coffee. I love Portuguese coffee. And it's like real coffee. It's really? Like rich. Yeah, it's rich. I think like every corner is like some cafe. Nice. And like usually the coffees are decent. Sometimes it's trash. Like not everybody has it down pat, but a lot of times it's decent. But yeah, it's like you could just have like a simple evening at a cafe, at a kiosk, get like a wine, a beer, or like any beverage you want, and then just like chill out there, especially if the weather's nice and good people. Sometimes they're playing music out there. It's just nice. Going out to eat is really cheap.
Oh really?
Yes.
So do you cook or are you out eating every day?
I've been eating. Because imagine like, okay, especially during work, I like to go out to eat with my colleagues. You know, it's nice. It's a nice vibe. And we go to like a tasca, which is like it's like a typical Portuguese like mom and pop restaurant. Tasca, yeah, it's called Tasca. Tasca. And they just sell Portuguese food, like a lot of rice, a lot of beans.
The Portuguese eat a lot of rice.
Yeah, they eat a lot of rice. They eat a lot of pork too. I don't eat pork, so I kind of stay away from that. But they have a whole bunch of different dishes: fish, steak.
What's your favorite? Or what you say is your favorite? Like if we came like to visit, like what would you be like? Oh, you have to try this. This is.
There's only one Portuguese restaurant that I take people to try, and it's called Lisboa Tui Eu or Eu e Tu.
That's a little French.
It's Portuguese. It means Lisboa, you and I.
Okay.
Lisbon, you and I. Yeah. And they sell it's like all authentic Portuguese dishes, especially like octopus salad, bacalhau, which is codfish, and they have.
I love fish.
So I love fish. Yeah, they're big on fish there, especially codfish. And yeah, like the portions there are really big, and like the dishes themselves are like super super cheap. So you can like share like a huge bacalhau abraço, I think it is. I always mix them up. There's different kinds, but this one is mixed with potato. Yeah, it's like little potato sticks, and it's like the fish mixed in, and egg binds it together. It's so good. And with the octopus salad, grilled sardines are huge there too.
Oh man.
You can get like a huge spread for maybe 25 per person, which is super nice.
Is there a lot of cultural diversity, or is it just like, can we go like say meet people from like Africa, meet people from the States, and
Yes.
like how's that like? I've heard different stories about like living abroad, like Europe and stuff, and I have friends from England that will complain about certain things. But is there like diversity, like?
Oh, like not enough diversity?
I'm asking if there's any.
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
How big it is it pretty much?
It's pretty big.
Okay.
Actually, I will say that all of my friends that I've made so far are all foreigners. Like I have friends from Brazil, I have a friend from Japan, Mexico, France.
Oh wow.
Like the islands over here, not
Yeah.
yeah, like just from everywhere. And notice how I didn't mention Portuguese. That's a different story. But that being said, Portugal colonized a lot of places during like the colonizing periods, including Brazil, a bunch of countries in Africa. Yeah, so there's a lot of people from those Portuguese-speaking countries, including Brazil, that are in Portugal as well. So, yeah, people from all over. It is a very small country, so like you'll see all types of people from like all corners of the world there because it's so small. So like there's chances are you're gonna run into somebody.
If you could give us advice on like just the top 3 things if we were to move or that we would have to consider before moving, what would you say if you decided to move abroad or to Portugal?
Okay. So things can be cheap there, but don't always expect luxury or 5-star service in like places that you go, even if it's like really nice places. So just like keep your expectations manageable. Get used to not having a dryer when you're doing laundry.
So what do you have to do? Like hang it up on the man.
Yeah.
That's how it was with Ricardo in Jamaica. So
yeah.
I like had that experience.
Yeah.
Where even when he came here, it was still like he still gave me that experience. It was inside the apartment. One day I came home and there was like clothes like hanging in the apartment. I'm sorry, baby.
I mean that's what you know. It's nice.
So it's like
your clothes will shrink.
And it's clean, so yeah.
No, but yeah, I mean, I will also say, like, I didn't pick Portugal just because I wanted to leave America. I picked it because I really fell in love with the language and the culture and how nice the people are. And just the energy I got when I was there. That's, like, super important to me. So just to people who are moving abroad, like, don't move just because you're like, oh, America sucks.
Yeah.
Move because you want to be in that place because you're not gonna always love everything about it, and you want something more to ground yourself, to attach yourself to that place instead of just being like screw America. So that's the biggest thing I'll say.
Okay. Would you say was there any like culture shocks for you? Something that you were just like, oh my gosh, like or landlords, really? I've never heard anything about like landlords being really.
Yeah.
Can you tell us an experience or something?
They just don't care. Like usually, okay, I mean you're not renting anymore, but it's like imagine you're renting a place and like an appliance doesn't work anymore. What would the next reasonable step be?
You'll call the rental office and like tell them that.
What rental office?
Oh, they don't have rental office.
They don't have rental office. Not. I mean, maybe some establishments have rental offices, but usually they're just condos that individuals own. And like, no, they're.
So what do you do?
Well, something happened to me. I called my landlord. I was like, hey, like this thing stopped working. They were like, oh, call the washing people, the washing machine people. Like my washing machine stopped working, and they're like, yeah, call them. Like we don't know anything about washing machines. I was like, no, you call them. This is your washing machine. And they actually told me that I'm free to buy a new one if I want to.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, what?
That's when you had to go and hang it up outside.
No, that's when like I can't even wash my clothes. I can't even have to hand wash it. What's going on? Yeah, weird. So that was a culture shock. But honestly, I feel like my growing up made me adaptable.
Yeah. Definitely.
So there's some things that people might find like insane that I'm like, oh, I didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So
You do that at home, or
yeah, it's like, oh, that's just how it is, you know. But the landlord thing, that was crazy. I was like, what? I'm renting. This is not my place. What do you mean buy a washing machine?
Do I got to take it with me when I leave?
Those
or
are questions that need answers. Like, what happens? Yeah, it was weird. So things like that. Luckily, it started working again out of nowhere.
Okay, good. Did you have to kick it, or?
It just started working. I don't know what it was, but they were not trying to help me with that at all.
Okay. That's good. That's good. Well, thank you so much, Holly, for coming here and talking to us. We really appreciate it, and your experience is amazing. We're incredibly proud of you. I know if Mommy was there, she'd probably making a whole bunch of noise and stuff in the background, and like talking about Halimatu and blah blah blah. So
Salimatu.
Salimatu. So thank you again so much for sharing that experience with us. And I know one thing that you mentioned during the conversation that you actually visited before you decided to move. So is that something that you would also recommend for people to actually visit and see like how the culture is and stuff?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
definitely visit, spend some time there, like really soul search.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually somebody who's house sitting for me that's doing that right now because she's considering moving there.
Mm-hmm.
And I highly recommend it. Just like get an Airbnb. If you can work remotely, like get an Airbnb for a month in that city that you want to be in, as long as you're allowed to, and just like really experience it. Because like if you move there and you cut your ties somewhere else and things aren't what you expected, yeah, it could be really bad. But yeah, I highly recommend visiting first.
So also before we leave, like tell us some about the countries that you lived in.
Kenya.
U.S., Kenya.
US,
Oh, okay. Okay.
And now Portugal.
Do you plan on like moving anywhere else, or do you think this is like your stop?
I don't really see myself anywhere else yet. Like I need to travel more.
Okay.
So next year is actually going to be me traveling more and trying to see what that looks like for me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very least, I want to stay to at least get permanent residency.
Oh.
So then I would have more flexibility because right now my residency requires me to be in the country 8 months out of the year.
Okay.
Or else I lose my status. It's kind of like the green card. Like you have to be within
6 months. The green card 6 months. Like, yeah.
But there it's 8 months.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's pretty good. So can you do us a favor? Can you teach us a phrase or something in Portuguese? I want to learn something. A greeting or.
Okay, greeting is easy. So so in the morning they say bom dia.
Bom dia.
That means good morning.
Good morning.
In the afternoon they say boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
So good afternoon. Boa tarde.
Boa tarde.
And then in the evening they say boa noite.
Boa noite. Okay.
Boa noite.
All right. So let's
good.
tell the audience bye bye. Can you say that in Portuguese?
Okay, ciao pessoal. That was probably more Brazilian.
Wow.
It's okay. Portuguese is Portuguese at the end of the day.
Yeah. Thank you again for visiting us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.